Welcome to Liesl's Artistic Studio. I'm so happy you're joining me today because we are going to paint these beautiful, soft pink flowers. And don't worry, I'll walk you through the process step by step so even a beginner can follow along. Now, last week I taught how to draw the basic outline for this, but if you missed that tutorial and would like to give it a try, I'll leave a link for that at the end of this video so you can go back and watch it. But if drawing is not your thing, or you just don't have time or would rather jump right into the fun of painting this, I do have an outline available on my Etsy shop, which I will leave a link to in the description of this video, along with the links and lists of the supplies you'll see me using for today's painting. Now, besides my paper, paints, and water, I've got two brushes I'll be using today, a large and a small round. The brand is Grabby brand, the larger brush is a size 4, and the smaller a size 0. Whether you choose to draw this outline for yourself or use my printable template to trace, the next step is getting the outline drawn very lightly with a pencil on the watercolor paper. Now I'll just tape this down with some artist tape really quickly and we're ready to get started. I'm going to take a little bit of Quinacridone Rose and put it on my palette here. And actually, I'm going to mix in just a hint of Dioxazine Purple to soften and tone that color down, making it slightly more of a purple-pink color. Now, I do want the pink to be more prominent though, so I'm really not adding very much of the purple. Now I'll take a little bit of ultramarine blue and darken it up just a little bit with some ivory black. This is going to soften the blue to more of a navy color. And then for fun, let's make a blue-green color by mixing some ultramarine blue with some phthalo green. And lastly, let's put a little hooker's green on our tray as well. And to soften this up a little bit, I might just add a touch of ultramarine blue. All right, let's use some of these colors for the background now. So using the larger brush, start by wetting a section of this background with just water first. Now, I'm just doing one section at a time here so that I can get these colors on smoothly and quickly before the initial water dries. So this first section will go around the top of the flower heads, as well as in between the flower and the flower bud. Then I'll move down the right side of the page, around the leaf on the stem of the bud, and then down near the left side of the bottom flower. Then, while that is still wet, we'll start adding in some of these colors. I'll put in a little bit of the blue-green first, and then move on to the darkened ultramarine blue. I'll keep the colors lighter and more watered down at first, so feel free to add more water if you need to, but then as I move down to more of the center area of the page, I'll keep it nice and dark and rich in value and color. Now, moving down through this little section here, I'll actually move back to the blue-green color to finish this off. And because I've been putting this paint on very quickly, I actually didn't paint a lot of the areas right up next to the pencil line. So I'm going to switch over to my smaller brush now, and while this paint is still wet, I'll spread that paint clear up to the pencil lines to create some nice, clean, crisp edges. All right, let's paint the second section for this background now. This one is going to be smaller. I'll paint some water using the large brush again, directly under this bottom flower. And then for the colors, I'll paint in some light or watered down blue-green and maybe even just a hint of the soft pink. I'll finish off this background by painting this bottom left side. So after the water is down, I'll again add some blue-green Then move on to the dark blue and maybe a hint of pink. While I let the background dry, I'll go and switch out my water for some fresh, clean water, and then we can move on to the next step. All right, let's add a couple more colors to our tray. First, I'll mix a little Hooker's Green and raw sienna together for a nice, warm brown-green color. Then I'll freshen up some of this blue-green, which again is Hooker's Green mixed with some ultramarine blue. And then I'll make a darker purple pink for some shadow areas by mixing some Quinacridone rose, again with Dioxazine purple, but this time I'm going to go heavier with the purple to make it a little darker than the first pink that's on our tray. Okay, now that the background is fully dry, let's start painting some of the leaves and greenery. I'll use different combinations of the greens that I have here. For some of the leaves, I may just use one solid color, like only the brown green. Some of the leaves, I may just want to use only the blue-green. But for the majority of the leaves I'm going to paint today, I think I'll use a combination of both. For example, I may paint the majority of the leaf the brown-green, and then while it's still wet, I'll blend in the darker blue-green on the bottom or the tip of the leaf to create a variance of color, or even to make it look like a shadow. Feel free to be creative here and paint the leaves in a color combination that you like. In fact, I might even throw in some pure raw sienna here and there just to add a nice, rich golden brown to some of the leaves to add even more of a variety and contrast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you haven't already. I absolutely love hearing from you, and I put out new tutorials every week that you definitely don't want to miss out on. While I've got the green paint out, I'm also going to paint the greenery that surrounds this little bud. All right, well done. We only have one more step left to this painting, and I think it's the funnest part to do. So really quick, I'm going to change out my water one more time before moving on so this dirty water doesn't tint the lovely soft pink color we're about to use. Okay, to paint these flowers, we are going to just focus on one petal at a time. So let's use the wet on wet technique for this to help keep our colors soft, light, and well blended. So using the small brush, I'll paint water on one petal first, And then using this lighter watered down pink, I'll add it to the petal, focusing the color mostly on the outer edges and the inner part of the petal closest to the center of the flower. In fact, this intersection should be the darkest part on each petal. So while the paint is still wet, I'll then take my darker purple pink and add a dot of color to this center area and allow it to bleed into the rest of the petal a little bit. I'm really not using a ton of pigment for these. I'm trying to keep the petals very light in value, which means I'm using a lot of water and less color. Keeping these petals very light in value is going to create a beautiful contrast with the dark blue in the background. And at this point, I am going to continue painting each petal in the same way until they are all complete. And as a side note, you'll notice that I may skip around a bit. I don't want to paint the next petal right next to a wet petal that I just painted. Otherwise, the petals and colors will start to bleed and blend together. So I'll skip about every other petal or so as I go, and then as the petals dry, I'll come back to them later and finish off the petals in between. And as I mentioned last week, if you watched the drawing portion of these flowers in my mind are sort of like a simplified peony. I had some lovely light pink peonies grow in my yard last summer, which I actually did a more realistic piece on a while ago that is also really fun to do if you want to give that a try. But these ones today are not quite as intricate and detailed. It's a little more relaxed, a little more soft. There isn't quite as many petals and folds, making it easier and quicker to paint. But both versions are fun to do and turn out beautiful. All right, while we let the rest of these wet petals dry completely, let's move back to the leaves really quick and paint a nice thin vein line down the center part of the larger leaves using some green paint and the small brush. Now let's finish off these flowers by painting the very centers. I'm going to make a nice dark pink color by mixing ivory black with some quinacridone rose. And then I'll add some Gamboge yellow to my tray as well. So for the centers of these flowers, let's start with this dark pink first. I'm just painting in dots of this color, mostly near the bottom and center area of the stamen, with maybe a few more dots around and about. And then I'll rinse and dry my brush and fill the remaining open areas with dots of the Gamboge color. And if the colors blend together a little bit as you paint, that's okay too. Now I'll do the same thing to the flower center down below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you feel pleased with the results of your painting. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.